Discussion. Financial, number 14, financial relationship of board member with a vendor and a recusal requirement as seen in Exhibit E. And I would like to read a letter that I need for Ms. Strange to put into the minutes. It is my duty to do that. It's addressed to me, Jan Hammond, Chairman of the Board of Trustees, regarding recusal of Kenneth B. Lovelace on certain matters. Dear Ms. Hammond, in accordance with the requirements of South Carolina Code Section 8.13.700B1, I am advising you as chairperson of the Board of Trustees for School District 5 of Lexington and Richland Counties of my affiliation with Contract Construction Incorporated. My affiliation with Contract Construction Incorporated is that the company which I am employed and a stockholder, Lovelace Commercial Contracting Incorporated, operates as a subcontractor on the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Forensic Lab Project, Columbia, South Carolina. The association began on March 12, 2020 and will end at the completion of the construction project. Please be advised that effective immediately, I will recuse myself from any and all votes, deliberations, and other actions on any matter that comes before the Board of Trustees relating to Contract Construction Incorporated. Please publish my statement to the board and the public at the board's next meeting on February 8, 2021. Include a copy of the statement with the minutes of that meeting. Yours truly, Kenneth B. Lovelace, Vice Chairman of the Board of Trustees. And I'll place this there. If anybody needs to see this, I'll be glad to let you see it, but it's going to go in the minutes. And this is here for Mr. Lovelace. Since you're the person that brought this before the board, I'd like you to have a point of
First of all,
interest.
to everyone listening, please accept my sincerest apologies. This is painful for me. It's not something I'm not having fun doing this. So, but my father told me, said, "Son, sometimes in life you have to stand up for yourself." Well, this is one of those times, and Dad, this one's for you. Okay, this situation is about a group of past and present board members trying to keep another board member from doing his duty, reviewing a school under construction. I asked to be able to review the Piney Woods Elementary project accompanied by the district project representative and fellow board member Nikki Gardner. I also had questions which I posed to Dr. Melton during March 2020. I've always been told that you don't retire from something, you retire to something. At present, I'm spending 60% of my time with efforts serving the public as a trustee for this school board. My wife, Johnny, and I are giving back to the community. We take immense pride in our ability to donate time and treasure. In short, we enjoy seeing positive effects wrought by our efforts. I neither take a salary from the district, nor have I received reimbursement for hotel, mileage, per diem charges related to travel required by this position. Neither John D. nor I receive Social Security because heretofore we have not needed it. Our goal is to die penniless. We are busy donating to reach our goal. We are neither motivated by money nor influenced as our opponents on this board prefer to paint us. I've heard our goals. Having heard our goals, do the claims that Mr. Ed White leveled at me in a board meeting, Mr. Lovelace put the business of the district on the street, make sense? He accused me of doing that in the board meeting of September 14, 2020. The small business which I am employed in a stockholder, Lovelace Commercial Contracting Incorporated, has about 50 employees, all from the Midlands. We have 3 profit centers. One acts as a general contractor, 2 are subcontractors to general contractors in the capacity of industrial scale concrete contractors. Since I am near retirement, we moved a few years back to a profit center style business plan. Each profit center is headed by an independent manager who develops, bids, and bills his own projects. I researched company records to find the following information. The South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Forensic Lab Project was one of our profit centers managers, was bid by one of our profit centers managers, Trey McDaniel. It was bid in the normal course of business without direct input or participation from me. It was bid on October 23rd, 2019, to 14 general contractors: MB Con, JM Cope, Gleason Contractors, E.E. Reed, Contract Construction, Hogan Construction Group, Podaker Construction, Edcon Incorporated, Mashburn Construction, Leitner Construction, IP GSP, Thomas Construction, M. Dillon Construction, and Cleveland Construction. There were other subcontract bidders in our trade, concrete construction. Lovelace earned the right to do the work on this project through competitive bidding. Cleveland Construction protested the general contract bid over an alleged licensing irregularity connected with contract construction and its electrical listed contractor who was their listed bidder. Contract Construction issued a letter of intent to contract in an email to Trey McDaniel due in November 2019. I was unaware of the email. Contract Construction issued the letter of intent without legal authority to do so because it had not been awarded the contract at that point in time. In fact, it was almost 3 months later that Contract Construction stated in another email dated January 24th, 2020, that it expected to be awarded a contract pending the expiration of Cleveland's appeal rights. Contract Construction stated that it expected to receive its notice to proceed effective February 3rd, 2020. Had Cleveland Construction been successful with its protest and therefore the award, Lovelace might have been working for Cleveland, not Contract Construction. Lovelace received a subcontract agreement for review from Contract Construction dated February the 11th, 2020. Lovelace received an executed subcontract on March 12, 2020. Contract Construction was selected in a relationship to Elementary School 13, which is Piney Woods Elementary School. I have researched district records and found the following. Contract Construction was selected as the construction manager at risk by the Selection Review Committee chaired by Robert Gant on September 18, 2018, prior to my election to this board. At the December 10, 2018 board meeting, Jan Hamron introduced a motion to delay construction at Amix Ferry site until an alternative site already purchased by the board could be explored. I voted yes to that motion. At the same meeting, I voted no to a motion to approve the contract for construction to Contract Construction Incorporated. I also voted no to approve a $30 million 8% bonds to build Amix Ferry. At the September 9, 2019 board meeting, I introduced and voted yes to a motion to have discussions about the early site work guaranteed maximum price moved to executive session from executive session to open session. Further, I voted no to the motion that Contract Construction's early site work guaranteed maximum price be approved. At the December 9, 2019 board meeting, I introduced and voted yes to restrict the total outlay on the project to the lesser of $30 million in 8% bonds approved at the December 10, 2018 meeting, or the architect stated and required budget of total construction cost at $24 million plus soft cost. Finally, I voted no to the motion to approve Contract Construction's guaranteed maximum price for the building, which put the total construction cost more than $26.6 million, which was greater than the budget of $24 million. In summary, I voted against the wishes of Contract Construction a total of 7 times. All the motions were voted before the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division Forensic Lab was awarded. The last vote occurred on December 9, 2019. Lovelace Commercial Contracting had no contractor relationship until March 12, 2020, which was over 3 months after the last vote. I was not aware of the status of any of the above until after the contract for review dated February 11, 2020 had been received. The same board member who has now made me the target of accusations made accusations in public in September 14, 2020 board meeting. It is obvious that he worked in consort with Contract Construction against me for political gain. Once the accusations were made in September 2020, I contacted Courtney Laster, General Counsel for the South Carolina Ethics Commission. As advised, I have since recused myself from any board actions to be taken on the matters affecting contract construction. I would like to say that I now realize that I should have recused myself early in time, but was not aware of the facts until the September 14, 2020 board meeting. Second, I was a board member for about 1 year's experience. Board members who were and are on the board for multiple terms, including Mr. White's 17 years, did nothing to discuss with me any perceived ethics liability before the September 14, 2020 meeting. For the discussion in the September 14, 2020 board meeting, other board members were obviously made aware of the situation by contract construction. Instead of speaking with me, they chose to attack me in public. At least one former board member and others made potentially slanderous attacks against Lovelace Commercial Contracting Incorporated by expressing untrue and misleading statements about confidential company information. Why are board members doing this? As Ed White wrote Dr. Melton on February 5, 2021, this is part of a larger conversation about individual board members trying to assume responsibility for inspecting construction projects as opposed to third-party inspecting independent experts who have legal responsibility directly to the district. This accusation is way off target. No one has attempted to do as Mr. White alleged. Quite to the contrary, the public expects its trustees to review a project in which it has invested more than $32 million in tax money. This larger question, I believe, is what relationships are past and present of trustees attempting to hide, and why don't they want us to see it? To those on this board who ascribe false motives while wasting valuable time holding Perry Mason-style mock prosecutions, you should remember, represent the people, not your ambitions. In a fiduciary sense, we make certain that the community's needs are met, not our own. I am on this board to represent and advocate for those who have no voice, the students. That said, I do not understand how reckless spending and cozy relationships with vendors help educate students. That's my statement.
This was on there as discussion. It was right to let Mr. Lovelace explain why he contacted them and what letter he brought to us, if there's any body would like to ask questions.
Yes, no, I got some comments to make as well. First of all, Mr. Lovelace, a number of things you said about me are inaccurate. First of all, I don't know anything about Lovelace Construction or any of your other construction companies, and anybody who wants to see what I said in that September 14th, 2021 meeting, the whole thing is video, and you can go see that for yourself. But as far as the Ethics Commission, I've asked for a separate conversation about board members wanting to inspect construction sites. This was the same conversation we had last year. We had the board officers at that time outline the role of the board officers, and there's a multitude of reasons. And if people want to go watch the September 14th, 2020 video, they can see the reasons why I object to individual board members, and I'm going to be making those comments again, hopefully in our next agenda. But as far as this ethics disclosure, first of all, it's not my responsibility to advise Mr. Lovelace on his ethics responsibility. He had an economic relationship with a vendor we do business with on March 12th, 2020. We didn't learn about that till shortly before the September 14th, 2020 meeting. And at that meeting, he was confronted about it in the meeting. I did not raise, another board member raised a question of, was that an ethics issue? And the August 20th meeting before this, Mr. Lovelace was raising ethics questions about people on the board, including Ms. Hammond and myself, who received donations from law firms for campaigns. That was not an ethics violation. We had counsel come back and explain that in our board meeting at the end of September, and that's on video. But in terms of this economic interest of Mr. Lovelace that we learned about and had confirmed in the September 14th, 2020 meeting, he then proceeded to get a ethics opinion, and they told him very clearly in there, and everybody on this board knows how I feel about this, because I sent a email on March 25th, 2021, asking, number one, because the ethics opinion that Mr. Lovelace put on the record on September 25, 2021, directed two things: that he did not have a conflict of interest, he had a potential conflict of interest, but he had a duty to recuse himself, and that recusal duty extends beyond just voting at this table, using his office in any way to influence anything with that vendor's contract. Inspecting school sites and giving feedback is influence over the rest of this board or the superintendent or the staff. I asked on January 25th, 2021, the second thing, that advisory opinion, which is in our minutes on September 25th, 2021. Anybody can go see that document. I asked that Ms. Hammond require him to put this statement on the minutes. It's required in his opinion. It should have been done the first meeting after the September 25th, 2021, when he put the advisory opinion on the record itself. I also made my views known. I'm going to put my email on the record so people can see I'm not in charge of the ethics laws. This is the Ethics Commission. I did have in my email that I conferred with one of my law partners who is a former chairman of the Ethics Commission, James Burns, and he concurred that he felt, based on the wording of the statute, that Mr. Lovelace should recuse him from any communications about this contractor's project, because it will have influence over this board whether to accept that project or not. It's a separate question about how we inspect sites. We can hire third parties to do that. We don't need individual members with economic interests, whether it's positive or negative. The statute doesn't differentiate. That being said, it's not my responsibility. The one thing I did ask is, I think the piece that's missing from Mr. Lovelace's letter is, when does his economic interest end? When I think you ought to ask him to put an addendum on that. But I'm also putting on the record,
Mr. White, I think it does have when it ends.
What's that?
It says it ends at the completion of the construction.
Oh, when is that? When are you going to know that his recusal obligation is over?
When I tell you it is.
Mr. Lovelace.
Let me, if I can, let me finish my statement. Y'all can go. That's the point. But I'm going to also put 4 emails on the record, one of which is what he referred to. There's a November 23rd, 2020 email, and there's 3 emails on February 5th, 2021, where there's communications from Mr. Lovelace about Piney Wood site, and it's my opinion that is designed to influence the board, and the board is a part of that. This isn't my responsibility. I'm making my opinions known. I have a separate request to deal with board members inspecting construction sites, and we'll deal with that at a later time. But I asked to have this, and thank you for having it, but also would ask you to monitor when somebody has an economic interest and make sure the recusal obligations are met.
Thank you. I have no problem with that, and I appreciate all the opinions, even though they're differing. And Mr. Lovelace, we appreciate hearing from you, since that did happen to you at that board meeting where you felt like you were on trial. So we've got to be fair and equitable to everybody, and every voice should be heard. Ms. Huddle.
I've kind of watched all this from a distance, and one of the things I was reading, the State Ethics Commission, and they don't define recuse. They just say, this means you are faced with a scenario, you must recuse yourself. So one of the things I'd like to talk about is a similar scenario. So I have 2 questions. One is, Mr. White is a partner with Nelson Mullins. So if you are an equity partner with Nelson Mullins, that means you're an owner. So does that mean we need to find out all of the vendors that District 5 does business with that may also do business with Nelson Mullins, and you have to recuse yourself from those items? So that's a question I have. And then the other question I have is, Mr. White took a $1,000 campaign contribution from Contract Construction on October 25th, 2010. And then on April 27th, 2010, 2017, Mr. White voted to award the contract for Amex Ferry Piney Woods to Contract Construction. After that, on October 27, 2018, Mr. White accepted campaign contributions from the CEO and Vice President of Contract Construction. And then after that, on September 9th, 2019 and December 9th, 2019, he approved contract addendums for contract construction. So I want to end this. I would like to make a motion that we ask the South Carolina Ethics Commission to rule on 3 matters. Number 1, what does recuse mean? Number 2, does Mr. White need to recuse himself because of his prior relationship with contract construction? And number 3, if Mr. White is an equity partner in Nelson Mullins, does the same effect hold true? In other words, any vendor of Nelson Mullins that is also, any customer of Nelson Mullins that is also a vendor for the district, Mr. White has to recuse himself from those matters.
To be for clarification on that, this was on for discussion. Are you making that a motion?
I am, just because I don't want to sit through this again.
And talk about this all night.
You know, or another meeting. This is the second meeting that this has happened. And I feel like if we don't understand what recuse means, we need to ask the South Carolina Ethics Commission. And we also need to make sure that similar situations are handled equally. So if we want to ask about Mr. Lovelace, I think we also need to ask about Mr. White.
Well, first of all, anybody can go file a complaint if they want with the Ethics Commission. If Ms. Huddle wants to do that, she's welcome to do that. And the reality is, I'm not going to sit here and dissect, because we all
don't
take
need to.
campaign
That's right. It's
contributions.
opinion.
That's not the purpose of this. But the question is, we have on our record an economic interest that was disclosed by Mr. Lovelace, and there is an affirmative duty that you have to the Ethics Commission, and Mr. Lovelace has the Ethics Commission. Anybody at this board wants to go to the Ethics Commission, fine, but it's not this board's role to audit and monitor each person here.
I made a motion. I mean, if we don't have a second, that's fine. But
There's a second. Any other discussion of this? We really, I'm going to limit it if anybody wants to discuss it.
Well, I'd like to explain it. I mean, if we're just going to keep coming back here and asserting that we have to make a decision on what recuse means, or we have to make a decision on whether or not what Mr. Lovelace or Mr. White did was right or wrong, I don't think that's for us to decide. That's the whole purpose of the South Carolina Ethics Commission. So I think we need to either ask the question or stop talking about it.
All right, we have had the motion a second, and then anybody else want to say anything, or are you ready to vote?
I would like to say
Make it
something.
short.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Lovelace, for your letter and for your statement. I appreciate that. I know that was not easy, and I really do appreciate it. And I appreciate Kathy's motion. I'm trying to debate whether or not we should amend it, because one of my concerns have been, because I don't know all of the history that's happened in the several years, and I know that I was a little bit surprised about the relationship with contract construction, and when I saw the ethics opinion, my concern is that you have made requests to review Piney Woods. I'm just concerned that you will have an ethics violation filed against you, and I would like that question to be addressed of whether or not that you being allowed to review those records and being on Piney Woods, whether or not that's in violation of this opinion or not. I'm not forming that opinion. I'm curious as to that. So,
Ms. Hines, I think that's a good point. But what I would say, none of us, even though Mr. White has his law degree and he is a practicing lawyer, this is a legal question. I don't think anybody up here has the authority to answer that legal question about whether he can go on that site. That's something we've got to do, and I agree that that's going to get done. It should get done. But tonight, let's get this meeting over with as far as Ms. Huddle's amendment, Ms. Huddle's motion, and we had a second, and let's vote. And Ms. Gardner hadn't spoken yet. You had your hand up when she had her.
Ms. Hammond,
Yeah.
I would just like to say, I feel like you're cutting me off. My emotion is germane, or my thinking about making an emotion is germane to what Ms. Huddle said. So,
I know, but I thought you
it's not-
agreed with it.
What now?
I'm sorry, I thought you
I mean, I'm
agreed
still
with-
talking, I mean, I was still kind of talking about that. I feel like my, you know, if I need to, I mean, I'll make a motion that if Ms. Huddle's motion is successful, I'll amend Ms. Huddle's motion to include a question of whether or not this ethics opinion provided by the South Carolina Ethics Commission will preclude Mr. Lovelace from inspection of the Piney Woods site.
Okay, so that would read, your motion, does the board need that motion to be reread to know how this goes with it? So we need a second to that. Are you seconding?
No,
We can't discuss it.
Ms.
You second
Hammond,
I
Ms.
want
Hammond,
to
we're in a
discuss what
discussion
you said.
agenda. There's not supposed to be motions. If somebody wants to
You
ask
can
you.
make a motion, though, in a discussion. I mean, you can make a motion at any time. You're right, it wasn't on here for action. I'm surprised we're having action. But I was explained as board chair, anybody can make a motion. If in its second, it just wasn't put on for action. I really wanted this to be an opportunity for Mr. Lovelace to put this on the record and have his own statement behind it. And then, of course, any discussion you needed to have, because you were mentioning it, that's fair. As far as the motion, Ms. Huddle's made it, but we're not gonna stay here all night with this, okay? I mean, I needed it. People need to go home. So, Ms. Huddle, you're gonna leave your motion as it is, and I need a second for your addition or amendment to the motion, Ms. Hines. Is there a second to Ms. Hines? Mr. Hogan seconds, okay? So let's have that, will you read yours to add to that, because it's together. I want to see if it goes together. That's what my point is. You want to have the Ethics Commission define recuse.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes, that'd be good.
I move that we ask the South Carolina Ethics Commission to rule on 3 items. Number 1, what is the definition of recuse in the 9/25/2020 letter to Mr. Lovelace? Number 2, given Mr. White's contributions from contract construction and 2 officers of contract construction, should he recuse himself from matters involving contract construction? Number 3, if Mr. White is an equity partner of Nelson Mullins, must he recuse himself from any matters involving a district contractor who is also a customer of Nelson Mullins?
And then your amendment to add to that said, and also find out whether or not Mr. Lovelace has to recuse himself from going on the
Whether
site.
or not the South Carolina ethics opinion provided by Mr. Lovelace precludes him from inspecting Piney Woods site or any of those
All right.
documents.
All those in favor of the amendment? That's 1, 2, 3. All those opposed? And you're abstaining? Okay. So it carries. So now we're back to the original motion, which is going to put all that together. So all those in favor of Ms. Huddle's motion with it amended, you may speak to it. Yeah, you were the original motion.
All right, so I've had, I just want to point out here that, just as a reiterate, that, you know, I agree with Mr. White when he says we don't need board members with economic interest. He said that. And I echo what Ms. Blackburn-Hines said. I'm concerned about board members doing something not right. So I would like to extend that concern to Mr. Ed White, because it's no secret that I've been following Mr. Michael Montgomery over the years and trying to figure out what his relationship with our board is. And I have something I'd like to add to the minutes here. These are exhibits, and they basically are June 17th, 2013, Board Member White voted to approve a no-bid vendor award for legal services to Michael Montgomery, specifically not his firm, as detailed on Exhibit 1, which I'd like to show. And then from 2016 to 2018, Board Member White received free legal services from Attorney Montgomery for his personal lawsuit against a former school board member, as detailed in Exhibit 2. And you can go back and Michael Montgomery actually said that in the meeting in September, that he had done work pro bono. It's in, anybody can watch it now because everything's live streamed. But he was specifically referring to the board member, Mr. White, and the former board chair, Gant's personal lawsuit against former board member Kim Murphy. And then on August the 24th, 2020, Board Member White voted to approve a no-bid vendor award for legal services to Montgomery Willard LLC over objections from fellow board member that he should recuse himself due to his personal relationship with Montgomery as detailed in Exhibit 3. Per the district's published disbursements registers, the district paid Attorney Montgomery $484,000 and some change up until he resigned in late 2020. And Board Member White voted 2 times to approve a no-bid contract for an attorney from whom he received a gift of free legal services, no doubt worth thousands of dollars. And just as an FYI, his South Carolina ethics filings for 2016, 17, and 18 do not include any of those gifts reported from Montgomery. So I'm concerned about Ed White too, and that's, I'd like to say.
That was just, you just gave us all that information as to why you're for the motion.
It confirms and reinforces the
Okay.
rest of the motion.
It's just, it's just
Yes.
reason why you read it. All right, all those in favor of the motion? 6, and abstain? Or you voted no? Huh, abstain? Abstain, okay. Thank you. Number 15. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Yes, ma'am, and Mr. Hogan, second. For all those in favor? And we have information, board policy, agenda, and regular next meeting, February 22nd. So we adjourn.